Have you ever taken medicine without asking what was inside it? Most of us have. We trust the label. We trust the doctor. We trust the science. But imagine buying a bottle from your local pharmacy, drinking it every single day, believing it would make you stronger, only to discover, years later, that every sip had been slowly poisoning you. This isn't fiction. It isn't an urban legend. And it isn't a conspiracy theory. It really happened. The product was called Radithor, a small glass bottle, filled with nothing more than distilled water and radioactive radium. It was advertised as a miracle, a scientific breakthrough, the future of medicine. Doctors recommended it. Celebrities drank it. Successful businessmen kept it on their desks, and thousands of ordinary Americans believed it could cure almost anything. Fatigue, depression, poor digestion, low energy, even aging itself. Today, the idea sounds unbelievable. How could anyone willingly drink radiation? The answer is surprisingly simple, because in the 1920s, radiation wasn't feared, it was celebrated. Only a few decades earlier, scientists had discovered radium. It seemed almost magical. It glowed in the dark. It produced heat without fire, and it appeared to possess incredible energy. When Marie and Pierre Curie isolated radium in 1898, the scientific world was astonished. Newspapers called it one of the greatest discoveries in history. People believed they were witnessing the beginning of a new age, an age where science could defeat disease, slow aging, and perhaps even extend human life. Companies quickly noticed the excitement. Before long, radium was everywhere. It appeared in toothpaste, face creams, chocolate, hair tonics, beauty products, health drinks, even children's toys. If a product contained radium, or simply claimed to, sales exploded. Because consumers associated radiation with progress, modernity, and hope. Very few people understood how dangerous ionizing radiation could be. Even many scientists didn't fully understand it yet. The long-term effects remained a mystery. The damage happened silently, inside the body, invisible, painless, until it was too late. Then came a man named William J. Bailey. Oddly enough, he wasn't a medical doctor. He had studied at Harvard, but never earned a medical degree. That didn't stop him from presenting himself as an expert. Bailey possessed something even more valuable than scientific credentials. He understood marketing, he understood confidence, and he knew exactly what people wanted to hear. He founded the Bailey Radium Laboratories. His advertisements promised renewed strength, greater vitality, mental clarity, improved athletic performance, even increased masculinity. His message was simple. Modern science had discovered the secret to unlimited energy, and it could be purchased for just a few dollars. The product was called Radithor. Each small bottle contained distilled water infused with tiny amounts of radium-226 and radium-228. According to Bailey, the drink was completely safe. More than that, he claimed it was beneficial. Thousands believed him. After all, if radium could fight disease, why wouldn't drinking it improve your health? The bottles looked elegant, clean, professional, exactly like any expensive pharmaceutical product. Nothing about them suggested danger. There were no warning labels, no skulls, no safety instructions, only promises. Promises of better health, more energy, a better life. And one man believed those promises more than almost anyone else. His name was Eben Byers. At first glance, he seemed to have everything. Born into a wealthy American family, Byers inherited a successful steel business. He was handsome, athletic, charismatic. He won amateur golf championships, moved comfortably among politicians, business leaders, and celebrities. Newspapers admired him. Friends respected him. He represented the American dream. Success, money, power, health. Then, everything changed. In 1927, Byers injured his arm after falling from a train. The injury itself wasn't life-threatening, but the pain refused to disappear. His physician suggested trying a new product, Radithor, a modern scientific tonic. Safe, refreshing, restorative. Byers took the first bottle, then another, then another. Within weeks, he believed he felt stronger. His energy returned. The pain seemed less noticeable. He became convinced the product worked. Soon, drinking Radithor became part of his daily routine. Morning, afternoon, evening, bottle after bottle, day after day, month after month. He wasn't worried. Neither were his doctors. No one imagined that inside his bones, something invisible had already begun. Something that would slowly transform one of America's healthiest men into one of medicine's most horrifying cases. And by the time anyone understood the truth, it was already far too late. For a while, nothing seemed wrong. Every morning, Eben Byers reached for another bottle of Radithor. The ritual had become part of his life. Breakfast, a bottle. Lunch, another bottle. Dinner, one more. Sometimes even more than that. He trusted it completely. Why wouldn't he? Doctors approved of it. Advertisements praised it. Friends recommended it. To Eben, Radithor wasn't medicine anymore. It was a habit. Weeks became months. Months became years. Bottle after bottle, he continued drinking radioactive water. Without realizing, every dose left behind something his body could never remove. Radium. Unlike many poisons, radium doesn't simply pass through the body. It behaves like calcium. Your bones mistake it for something useful. They absorb it, store it, and keep it there. Sometimes, for the rest of your life. No 101. At first, the warning signs were small. A dull ache in his jaw, occasional headaches, fatigue that refused to disappear. Nothing seemed serious. Doctors blamed stress, overwork, minor infections. No one suspected the real cause. How could they? Almost nobody had studied what happened when someone swallowed radium every single day. Eben continued drinking, believing every bottle would help, when in reality, each one was making things worse. Archive eyeball 1. Then, his teeth began to loosen. One, then another. Dentists removed them. But something strange happened. The empty spaces refused to heal. Instead, the bone itself began to decay. Slowly, relentlessly. His jaw became infected. Pieces of bone started breaking away. The pain became unbearable. Doctors had never seen anything like it. One physician later described the damage as unlike anything in ordinary medicine. Something was destroying the bone from the inside. AI-02. The disease spread, not just in his jaw. His skull weakened. His bones became fragile. Simple movements caused intense pain. Even speaking became difficult. Friends who hadn't seen him for months barely recognized him. The confident athlete, the successful businessman, was disappearing. His body was literally falling apart. Quantur. Home 02. Still, no one could explain why. Some believed it was a rare infection. Others suspected cancer. Several doctors disagreed completely. Medical science simply didn't have enough answers. But one question refused to disappear. What had changed in Eben's life? The answer was sitting beside his bed. Another bottle of Radithor. AI-03. Eventually, specialists began investigating the product itself. Laboratory tests revealed something shocking. Each bottle contained measurable amounts of radium-226 and radium-228. Tiny amounts, but not harmless amounts, especially not after hundreds, or even thousands, of bottles. By some estimates, Eben Byers had consumed well over 1,000 bottles, perhaps even more. No one knew the exact number, only that it was enough to make history. Archive 02. Scientists examined his body. What they discovered shocked even experienced researchers. His skeleton had become radioactive. Years after drinking the product, his bones were still emitting radiation. The very thing advertised as life-giving energy had become a permanent source of destruction inside his body. There was no cure. No surgery could remove it. No medicine could stop it. The damage had already been done. AI-04. In 1932, Eben Byers died. He was only 51 years old. Newspapers across America reported the story. One headline captured the nation's attention. The radium water worked fine. Until his jaw came off. It sounded unbelievable, but it reflected the horrifying reality. The miracle cure had destroyed the man who trusted it most. Eben Byers' death made headlines across America. For the first time, millions of people were forced to ask a terrifying question. If this could happen to one of the country's healthiest and wealthiest men, how many ordinary people were quietly suffering the same fate? Newspapers demanded answers. Doctors demanded investigations. And the United States government could no longer ignore the growing scandal. Investigators turned their attention to the company behind Radithor, the Bailey Radium Laboratories. For years, William J.A. Bailey had built an empire on confidence. His advertisements promised strength, youth, vitality, even renewed masculinity. There was almost no claim too bold. The bottles looked scientific, the language sounded convincing, and thousands believed every word. But investigators soon discovered something deeply troubling. Bailey was not a licensed physician. He had attended Harvard for a time, but never earned a medical degree. Still, he wrapped himself in the language of science. To the public, that was enough. Government scientists began testing Radithor. The results were undeniable. The product really did contain radioactive isotopes, not trace contamination, not an accident. Radioactive radium had been deliberately added, exactly as advertised. The difference was, scientists now understood what prolonged exposure actually did to the human body. The same energy once celebrated as miraculous was quietly destroying living tissue. Inside the bones, radium continued releasing radiation, day after day, year after year. Unlike an ordinary poison, it didn't disappear. It remained trapped inside the skeleton, bombarding nearby cells, damaging bone marrow, destroying healthy tissue, increasing the risk of cancer. And because the radiation came from inside the body, there was almost no escape. The patient carried the danger every second of every day. Eben Byers wasn't the only victim. Doctors began looking back at unexplained illnesses. Some patients had complained of persistent bone pain. Others had mysterious dental problems. Several suffered fractures that seemed impossible to explain. Not every case could be linked directly to Radithor. But one thing had become painfully clear. America's obsession with radioactive health products had gone much too far. Throughout the 1920s, companies sold radioactive toothpaste, radioactive cosmetics, radioactive face creams, radioactive heating pads, even radioactive drinking water. To modern audiences, it sounds absurd. But at the time, many people genuinely believed radiation represented the future. It symbolized progress, innovation, hope, the invisible force that would transform medicine forever. Instead, it exposed how dangerous blind faith in new technology could become. Federal regulators finally stepped in. Public pressure continued to grow. Medical journals published new warnings. Scientists called for stricter oversight. One by one, radioactive consumer products began disappearing from store shelves. The age of miracle radiation had come to an end. But for some people, the realization came far too late. William J. A. Bailey never faced prison for selling Radithor. By the time public opinion turned against him, the laws simply weren't strong enough. His company collapsed. His reputation was destroyed. But for years, he had profited from a product that slowly poisoned the very people who trusted him. Eben Byers became the most famous victim. His case reached newspapers across the United States. Doctors studied every detail. Scientists examined the damage. Government agencies used his story as evidence that dangerous medical products could no longer be left unregulated. One man's suffering helped change the future of public health. The tragedy also transformed the way Americans viewed radiation. Only a few years earlier, radium had been advertised as a miracle. Now, it had become a warning. People stopped seeing it as magic. They began seeing it for what it truly was, a powerful force capable of helping medicine in carefully controlled situations, but equally capable of causing irreversible harm. Today, radiation still saves millions of lives. Doctors use it to diagnose disease, to treat cancer, to perform life-saving procedures. The difference is knowledge. Every dose is carefully measured. Every treatment is closely monitored. Lessons written in history are now built into modern medicine. More than 90 years have passed since Eben Byers took his final drink of Radithor. Yet his story continues to appear in medical textbooks, history documentaries, and university classrooms around the world. Not because he was careless, not because he was foolish, but because he did what almost anyone would have done. He trusted experts. He trusted advertisements. He trusted what appeared to be modern science. History has a strange way of repeating itself. The products change. The technology changes. The promises change. But one thing rarely does. Whenever a miracle cure appears, someone is always ready to believe it, and someone else is ready to sell it. Perhaps the most frightening part of this story isn't that people once drank radioactive water. It's realizing that they truly believed they were making themselves healthier. They weren't reckless. They weren't ignorant. They were living in an age that confused innovation with safety. Eben Byers didn't know the danger. Neither did thousands of others. Their stories remind us that scientific progress is one of humanity's greatest achievements, but only when it is tested, questioned, and understood. Because history has shown that blind trust can be just as dangerous as ignorance itself. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy true stories hidden in the darker chapters of history, consider subscribing to Red Autumn Dark Stories, because sometimes the most terrifying stories are the ones that really happened.